It's always funny whenever you guys get quiet, because I'm still looking for a song, and you guys could be fellowshipping and talking. But no, you're not allowed to because I found a song. 387. 387. Restore my soul. We'll do all three verses. Restore my spirit, Lord, I need restored. My heart is weary, please help me, dear Lord. I stand in need of more strength from your word. Renew my love, rebuild my faith, oh, restore my soul. Revive the fire, Lord, deep in my soul. Stir my desire to work in your fold. Light in my heart, dear God, your zeal grown cold. Renew my love, rebuild my faith, oh, restore my soul. Renew my courage, Lord, it needs restored. My cup is empty, refill it, dear Lord. Replace all doubts and fear with faith so bold. Renew my love, rebuild my faith, oh, restore my soul. Renew my love, rebuild my faith, oh, restore my soul. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, as we come before you this evening, Father, what a wonderful privilege it is to be called your people. And Father, as we look back into your word, into the beginning, which is the Genesis, Father, we thank you. There are so many times whenever we look back and we see things that we didn't see before, or we learn new things, Father, and it's only because your word just holds infinite value and infinite wisdom. And Father, for our lives this evening, I pray that we might be those that take hold of this, that look at it like, as your word says, that we should, like a lion over its meal or over its prey. And Father, help us to devour it. Father, thank you for your love. Father, be with all of those that are going through difficult things. There are so many names, Father, on our hearts and on our minds. I pray that you be with them all. And Father, it's in your Son's name that I pray all these things. Amen. Alrighty, Genesis chapter 43. Genesis chapter 43, and last week we kind of talked about this idea of transformation, or I guess change, and what is transformation? Kind of talked about it from the term metamorphosis, right? That word metamorpho in the Greek, which we found in Romans chapter 12. But what was kind of the idea with that?
Completely different being.
Yeah. Right, that idea held within it the idea of like a caterpillar and a butterfly. Something that goes from one thing to something completely different. The lifestyle of it changes, the habits of it change, the way it moves changes. Its entire being seems to, have this transformation to where it was this caterpillar that could only crawl and move in that way, but now it's this butterfly that flies and that goes in different places, has different areas and habits and whatnot. And we were kind of talking about that with the change of Judah, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more this evening. But as we continue with kind of these thoughts, real quick, how are we with change? Just in general, how are we with change?
Resistant.
Okay, resistant. That's a good word.
It's hard for us to change.
It's hard. It's difficult.
Sometimes it's really good.
Sometimes it is really good, right? Change is a good thing, and it can be a good thing. I think with the scriptural and biblical narrative, change is a really good thing for the most part. But what is our reaction, or what are our thoughts with the ideas of change?
Depends on whose idea the change is.
Okay, explain that.
Well, if it's my idea, then it's a good idea. It's probably the right idea.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. But if it's somebody else's, then are we sure about that?
Hmm. That's a good point.
It can be good.
It can be, can it?
And also, is it perceived as good or bad? Your perception of what change is.
Sure.
Kind of what James was saying, if we perceive it's gonna be good, oh yeah, we can jump in and 2 weeks later, like, this is a terrible idea.
Sure. Yeah. What are some things that we notice change in life?
Non-Christian becoming a Christian.
Okay, so there's the change of non-Christian to a Christian. What else? Say it again. Physical. Okay, whether that's getting older, whether that's injury, whatever that might be. There's physical changes that happen. The loss of hair for some. You can laugh at that. It's okay. I said it. What other types of changes do we see? Seasons, right? We talked about that on Sunday. The change of the seasons, and there's seasons that is very literal in what we're seeing happen right now, or there's seasons kind of, right? We've kind of gone from, we think it's fall, possibly. But also now we're talking about seasons in terms of our lives. The different seasons that we go through, the different seasons that come in, because we understand from Ecclesiastes chapter 3 that there's a season, or there's a time for every season in every matter under heaven, according to God. Say it again.
Scary.
Yeah, scary is a great word for it. It's the unknown, isn't it? And, okay, so how about change internally? Like, what do we think about internal change? Changes of ourself, or changes of our thought processes, or growth, yeah. But change can also be negative, can it?
As the body ages.
Yeah, right?
I'm hearing yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Change is somewhat neutral in the word, right? Because there can be good change and there can be bad change, and there could be change that affects a lot and change that affects very little. What is our thought process in the change in others? How do we handle others changing around us?
Depends on if it's a change for the good or if it's a change.
Yeah. And then who determines whether it's a good or bad, right? How it affects you is usually the key determiner when it comes to change and these types of things. I think the reason why I'm asking this, and we're going to get into Judah, is because Judah up until this point has been a pretty terrible character. I mean, he's just not been a good guy. He's not been a good brother. He's not been a good son. He's not been a good son-in-law, or actually father-in-law, I guess you would have it with Tamar, right? So he's not been this good guy, but we're going to see the switch in him here in a second. So if you go to chapter 43, verse 11, we're going to read through this again. We kind of talked about this. But it says, "Then their father Israel said to them, 'If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bags and carry a present down to the man, a little balm and a little honey, gum, myrrh, pistachios, nuts, and almonds. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was returned into the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take also your brother and arise and go to the man. May God Almighty, or El Shaddai, grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your other brother Benjamin. As for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved.'" So let's talk about Jacob's transformation or change real quick. When they first come back to him, what is Jacob's response to, "Hey, we've got to take Benjamin now and go so that we can get Simeon back and come back"? Yeah, absolutely not. You're going to bereave me of both of my children, and I've already lost one. And then what is his thought of Reuben's offer? Yeah. Like, you're going to offer your two sons, so he says no to that, which I would agree that was not a very good solution by Reuben. But we also didn't talk about the fact that, do we remember what Reuben did to Jacob or Israel just a few chapters back? who did Reuben sleep with? One of Jacob's wives, right? And so, if that doesn't murk or muddy the waters for that kind of stuff, right? And so we have that going on, but then Judah comes to him, or now actually Jacob goes to them and says, hey, you need to go back to Egypt. We're going to die, essentially. And Judah's like, hold on, do you not remember what we asked of you? Like we told you that this man said, we can't come back. And actually there's a weird thing because there's, and I haven't really parsed this out enough to explain it too much. But there's some addition and some weird stuff with the conversation that's relayed to Jacob about the conversation that Judah and them had with Joseph. It's not all completely correct, which is weird. But then also they add this phrase of, we cannot even see his face, which is an interesting phrase because that phrase is only used a multitude of times. God uses it when it comes to Moses. I also think that this happens with Jacob and Esau. And so there's a weird thing going on with that as well that I haven't really I haven't been able to parse through yet. I just forgot where I was going with that. Anyways, as we continue on with this, right, we've seen Jacob say no, and now we're seeing Jacob say yes. And Jacob's not only saying yes, but also, did you catch just real quick, just as an aside, in verse 11, there were three ingredients or three things that they're sending that were also talked about in 37? The gum, the myrrh, and the balm were all the things that the traders that they sold Joseph into slavery were also traders of, which is just kind of an interesting, he's sending ingredients and things that would probably remind Joseph in a way of the things that he was walking alongside and amongst. It's just interesting how those things are also brought together with that. And continuing, the two different ways that Jacob reacts to this. On the first reaction, he's reacting in a way that's absolutely not. I'm not sending my other sons. He's reacting in a completely emotional way, which I'm not saying is unfounded necessarily, right? He's already lost a son. He doesn't want to lose his other son, and his one son is still locked up in Egypt. Obviously, you would be emotional at this point. But then you get him a little while later, and what does his constitution look like in 11 through 14? Realization. What sometimes necessitates change? Desperation needs circumstance, right? We're now running out of food, and so what I previously said about sending my other son, I'm going to retract that, and I might be in a better state of mind now in a way, because he's even mentioning God and saying, right at the end of this, verse 14, may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, and may he send back your brother and Benjamin, and as for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. In a way, he's saying, I'm going to choose my family now. This is a famine. We're all struggling. My entire family is struggling. And if I'm bereaved, then I'm bereaved. If this is what happens, then this happens because of who? Because of God. He's saying, let God decide what happens in this. And that's completely different than the man that we just saw in the conversation a chapter before this. But then also think about Judah, right? Judah was integral in selling his brother into slavery. He's the one who literally said, hey, listen, let's not kill him. Let's get something out of him, right? Let's get something that benefits us and we can get rid of him and benefit ourselves. He's that guy who said that. But then he's also the guy in chapter 38 with his dealings with Tamar, who's selling it or giving his signet ring and giving his stuff as a means for an exchange of something that's not scripturally okay. And And then he ends up in this situation with Tamar, which is not a good situation, right? And this is the guy that's going to be redeeming Benjamin and Simeon back, and the whole family, and Joseph, back to their father. Now, how do we feel about this change in Judah or Jacob? What are our thoughts about it?
I think there's the realization that his,
Okay?
if I'm bereaved, I'm bereaved. That's pretty fine.
Yeah.
This is realization says, this is it. That's all I got.
Think about where it had to get to for him to make this decision, right? But sometimes desperation does that to us. Sometimes getting to the end of the well makes us look up. Getting to the end of the pit makes us look up. And change is required at that point. Because if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to be stuck where you're at. And so, keep telling me, what are our feelings about Jacob and Judah, or Israel and Judah at this point, and then the changes that they're making?
I think Judah shows some quality. The Tamar,
Towards the end, yes.
she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her my son, and he did not know her again. I mean, there shows a little bit of conscience there,
Sure.
so maybe that was a start of something.
Is it hard for us to accept the change in other people?
Sometimes we don't trust it to stay.
It's hard, isn't it? I mean, if you're reading the story about Jacob or Israel in this, what are you expecting after this?
Go back like they were.
Yeah, the same thing to happen again. The same pattern as we talked about to happen again, to where then he now says, okay, I don't believe any of this, and I'm going to sit here and do this. And then it's going to be like, I'm in desperation, I need God, and then God's going to show up. That's kind of what you're expecting from Jacob at this point. And if you're thinking about Judah and all the things that he's done that we've seen so far, you're kind of thinking that he's doing this as a means to get something out of it. Don't you? 20 pieces of silver or some sexual relation with Tamar. Like, he's a guy that's looking out for himself, for numero uno. But yet, it does not seem Jacob or Israel is doing that, and it doesn't seem like Judah is doing that, and especially when you get towards the end of chapter 44 with Judah's conversation with Joseph. He basically says, I can't go home unless I have Benjamin. He's like, I made a vow, and I know what this is going to do to my father, and I know what this is going to mean for me. I can't go back without him. And that's also at the point in which Joseph breaks down and quits this ruse and testing and says, okay, I see that you're different. I see that something's changed in you. You're not accepting the silver. You're not accepting the things that I'm going to give you for this. You're sticking to your guns. You're sticking to what you've said. And so I know that you're different. And he can't contain himself anymore. It's actually one of the most beautiful scenes in my mind in the Old Testament or in the Bible proper, to see Joseph's emotion with his brothers and the reconciliation that there is. I can't read it without feeling weepy. Anyways, question. So this is 22 years, I think we said, about, give or take, after Joseph is sold into slavery, right? 22 years of change, 22 years of maturing, hopefully, and all of these different things. Is there a specific age when change or transformation gets to stop? We say no. Do our actions and do our lives also say no? I think it's a valid question. I think that we have this idea And I don't know if that's just a human idea. I don't know if it's just an American idea. I don't know what it is, but that at a certain age, we are kind of just who we are, right? We've gotten to where we've gotten to, and maybe it's the retirement idea of, well, you know, when I'm 65, I retire from my work and I retire from my changing as a Christian. And I'm not saying that's everybody, and I'm not trying to put anything on anyone, especially anyone over the age of 65. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do here. But I'm saying that there is that mentality. The older we get, the more difficult it becomes to change. The more in our habits, the more in who we are, we tend to be. I have experienced this when it comes to marriage a little bit, right? Because I got married a little later than some. I got married when I was 31 years old, and so I had, 9, 10 years, I think, of being outside of my parents' household, establishing my own life, my own rhythms, my own habits, my own things. And so, you know, when Madeline folds the towel one way, I go, why do you fold it that way, right? And then instantly go, this is not something you should say. Right? Like you start to think about that stuff. Like, I had a way that I did things, and I just do it over and over and over again, and it creates the same result. But as we get older, those things tend to stack up, and we tend to be that way, which makes, it seems, change more difficult as life goes on. Possibly, yeah.
And you're able to kind of see the pathways in a sense that God's kind of giving you.
Well, and there's wisdom with that, right? There's a lyric in a song. I can't remember the song, but essentially it goes, "Wisdom is a gift, but you trade it for youth." But if that's true, then also the wisdom of change or transformation should also continue as we go along with that. I mean, you know, the difficulty is, well, I think that experience is a portion to that. I think that Jacob or Israel is able to look back and, I mean, think about what he did with Esau, right? When he's about to meet with Esau, what did he send all before him? Gift after gift after gift after gift. And that worked. So why wouldn't sending gum and myrrh and balm and 2 things of silver and all of this stuff work too? Right? He's living off of some type of experience as well. But I think experience allows us to change in some ways as well. So, in that question, what are some things that we should be changing? Mm-hmm.
Get over and or whatever. I mean, if you're learning more than meaning of it, you should be willing to change what your thought pattern was before.
Sure.
That it's not everything that the Bible teaches.
Right. And we talked about that last week a little bit in the idea of, are you reading for information or are you reading for transformation, right? Are you reading just to be informed on what it says? Or are you reading it for it to literally transform who you are and how you look and see and speak and talk and what you're comfortable being around?
Isn't that the battle, though?
Absolutely.
It truly is.
Yep.
You know, bless your heart, I will say something and I get the look she gives her first graders. Should just, I got that the other day. And I'm like, okay, you still hadn't changed. Above 65, and still hanging out over there. So, but that is the big battle that we try and fight every day.
Sure.
It's almost like when we talk about some of the stuff that Israel done, it's like he's almost an addict. You know, addicts will get better and better. And as soon as they start feeling better, then they revert back to some of them. If they're not strong, they revert back to where they were before.
Sure.
It's kind of what you expect at him, an addict attitude.
Sure.
I get what I want, and now I can go back to work.
It's so interesting because that word addict has, obviously, and especially for our culture, has such interesting connotations to it. But if we continue in the same patterns of the wrong type of emotions or the wrong type of actions or certain sins, wouldn't we also consider ourselves an addict to those things or those feelings or those ways? And I think that's why in Colossians chapter 3, and we've talked about this before, and we've talked about this, I don't know if I put it in this way right, but literally chapter 3 and verse 5, because it's just talked about, if you've been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above where Christ is seated. And what it says next in verse 5 is, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. I love that idea, and mostly because of the idea that it's not about just putting it away for a little bit, right? You're not putting this thing away in a cupboard and saying, I'm never going to touch you again. By the way, for an addict, that's usually a really, really bad choice to do, right? Putting it somewhere accessible that you could find it again, but thinking you're strong enough to... It literally says to put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. Mortify these sins. Kill them. Right? Change doesn't happen when we don't kill the things of the world within us. The problem is that, like Jacob, listen, I'm the same way, is that we don't kill it, we just throw it really, really far off to the side, thinking I'm never going to touch or see it again, and then we just kind of slowly make our way back to grabbing it again. I love Colossians 3 because it says to put it to death. Like there's no other option.
You got to rewire your whole.
Yeah.
It's not just like you said. You will get back into a habit of the old things. You don't fully.
Absolutely.
Rewire your whole thought.
Well, and in this rewiring, right, there's a ripping out of wires, there's a cutting of wires to reset new ones to go in new places. Yeah, I like that idea too. But it says, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. And we've talked about this before too. I know I'm going over some stuff that we've talked about. But we talked about the big sins, right? Sexual immorality, impurity, passions, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these things, the wrath of God is coming. Now, we look at some of these, right? Sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, covetousness, idolatry. Most of us, in my mind, most of us would look at this and go, I don't have idolatry, right? I don't worship a carved image. I don't, lay my wares before it. Like, I don't have sexual immorality, or in that way, I don't have, evil desires, all the time. Like, I'm good on that front. On these sins, I'm fine. But then you get to the next ones. In these, you too once walked when you were living in them, but now you must put them all away. So, he doesn't stop. Anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge after the image of its creator. You're killing those things. So the way that Michael Foster puts this, and I love it, is that the first ones are like the really, really bad ones, right? That we think that the people who have these ones, they're in jail. We're not those people, right? But then this next ones are just personality traits. He's just an angry guy, he's just kind of angry all the time. Oh, so-and-so, he talks about hating that person all the time. It's just kind of funny. Or malice, they're just kind of a malicious person, they just kind of always have a bad attitude and just, nothing makes them happy or joyful or, okay. So we have the really bad ones, but he says also these ones that we just account to be our personality, impatience, whatever you want to put in that category, you put those to death too. Like, we're not living with those. We're not living in that realm. We're changing those things. Why? Because you've been seated with Christ. And you're seeking the things where He is. You're seeking the heavenly things. And to be seeking those heavenly things, right, you can't be a part of these things. You have to put them to death. You have to mortify them. You have to kill them. You have to cremate these things so you never see them again. I love the way that, and we'll talk about this, but how can we change? How can we mortify these things if we're unaware of ourselves? If it's just our daily habit to live life the way that we've always been living, or to be thinking about things the way that we've always been thinking about them, or to watch, there's that person who watches, the same newscast and says the same thing every single time they see, something happen. There's that person who, regardless of what's happening, they're always kind of frustrated or angry. They're just unaware of themselves and the way that they act, or the way that they treat others, or the way that, they are unable to listen. They're unable, are we aware of the sins in which we have in our lives? Whether that be accounting to something that we just account to our personality, or whether that be one of the bad sins, because that's not meaning that we don't have them. There might be someone who has one of these, and maybe, just maybe, we both need to kill whatever it is. Because this is a sin just as much as this is a sin. There's no discrepancy. Are we aware of ourselves?
In those 5 or 6, I'm not open to there, but the minor ones.
Sure.
I think Jason actually brought it up one time during Sunday morning class. That you take those minor ones and they can lead to any one of the major ones.
And I think that's a great point.
It's a stepping stone or a ladder. I think he called it a ladder that reaches to more severe
Right.
sin.
Well, and we've talked about the fact, too, that don't lie to one another. And I think that the lying has to do with saying that we've changed, saying that we're different, saying that we're seeking the things that are above. And on the next day, we have foul language and we have foul speech and we're putting people down, or we're angry at someone and we're treating them badly, or we're, in whatever profession we're in, we're calling the people that we work with or the people that we work for certain things or certain names, or we're involved in these certain sins and we're just not thinking about it. But when we get here on Wednesday or Sunday, we're a completely different person, just all smiles, all happy, everything's all good. And it's that false idea of change. You haven't really changed. You just changed your Sunday morning and Wednesday night activities. Your constant is something else. And you know how you can see what your constant is? The same way that we see Jacob's or Judah's. You track who you are, what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're reacting to people, how you're acting towards people. Change requires action. We can't just sit here, and here's the other thing we can't do, is sit here and think, I have this sin. Oh, man, God, please forgive me. And then tomorrow, when that same situation arises, do the same thing. Like, it requires awareness, but it also requires for you to mortify, to kill it, to act on it, and do something different than you did before. And so Michael Foster says it this way. He has 3 articles about this chapter 3. And in his first one, he talked about this idea of starting where your feet are. And I love that. Because in order to change, you have to know where you're standing. You have to know what sin is in your life. You have to know what sin you're going to mortify before you mortify or before you kill it. Yeah.
That's what I've been working on with the meditation.
Sure, yeah.
That's the thing you can see in the Bible, because it's over so many years, you see patterns easily.
Mm-hmm.
But in your life, unless you're, honest with yourself and can get there
Right.
Hey, I'm doing this and that, and next time it comes up, like you said, you know, if you don't know what you're changing, you obviously.
Absolutely. Right. So he says, start where your feet are. He says, find the sin and name it. You have to find that sin that you struggle with, whether that be, like I said, your personality or the big one, and you name that thing in your life. You understand what it is, what you struggle with, and where it's affecting your life. And then he says you starve it. You don't allow it to have any bit of food, any bit of drink. You don't allow it to feed on anything, right? You starve that thing. You remove the fuel, right? A car without fuel can't run. It can't go anywhere. And so if there's something that causes you to have malice, or if there's something that causes you sexual immorality or impurity or passion, evil passions, or to covet what somebody else has, you remove that from you. I think one of the biggest ones is, just remove social media for a while. Remove all of the temptation to see things, to look at other people's lives, to whatever that might be. He says remove that fuel and then set up guardrails, right? So starve it, remove the fuel, set up guardrails so that you can't even go and touch it. The way I think of it is like, someone might have a sin, and that sin might not seem big to somebody else, but it's really, really big to them. And I kind of think of it as like a NyQuil sin, right? I think a normal everyday person is not going to look at NyQuil and go, oh man, that better be locked up, right? But we've had to lock up NyQuil in drugstores or in Walmarts because people will abuse that. Because people will drink. Some people will drink 4 or 5 of those because they're not allowed to buy alcohol, right? And so that's something to someone, but it may not be to you. And so that box where that NyQuil is sitting in is set up because that one person is going to... You have to set up that guardrail. Or I also think of it like the rails that we use when we're bowling for children and for myself sometimes. It's a lot more fun, isn't it? Because the goal is to knock down the pins. And when there's gutters, you can't knock down the pins, right? And so those rails help you to get to where you need to go, to knock out the pins that you need to knock out. And so you've got to set up those guardrails that say, it's not going to allow me in the gutter. It's not going to allow me to get to that sin. It's not going to allow me to get to that place or to get to that personality trait or to get to that area. And then he says, confess it to someone. And this is not someone that's going to look at you and say, oh, do better next time. This is someone that's going to look at you and that's going to keep you accountable for that thing. That's going to text you or call you and say, hey, how are you doing with this? Are you struggling with it? What's the update? And then whenever you say, oh, I'm good, they're going to look at you and go, are you though? I had a youth minister who, whenever we would walk by him in church or whatever, he would shake our hands. And then when he shook our hands, he'd say, how are you doing? And we go, we're good. And then we go to walk by and he was still holding on. And he'd go, no, really, how are you doing? Like he made it a point to make sure we weren't just giving our normal alibis, right? Our normal goods or our normal, life's great, He really wanted to know. So confess that sin that you've named, that you've starved, that you've removed the fuel for, that you've set the guardrails up. Confess that to someone who's going to actually keep you accountable for it, and that's going to look at you, and when they see that you're struggling with it, go, hey man, or hey, listen, I see you're struggling with this again. What's going on? Did you remove the guardrails? Did you fuel up? Like, did you, mortify these things, kill them. Change is needed as Christians. It's one of our main tenets as those who follow Christ. And so think about these things, right? Think about these things. Find that sin in your life, name it, and make plans to kill it. Don't make plans, kill it, but then put these things in place so that you might remove this completely from your life. Any thoughts or any questions?
The word you used, one of those, started.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I don't do to myself often, right? As you can tell, I'm fully fed. Yeah. Yeah, that's death in some form or fashion, right? Yeah, absolutely, Art. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. Listen, if Jacob can change, if Judah can change, if these men who have done these heinous, horrible things that we see can change, we can too. And it's Christ who believed in you, and he wouldn't have died if he didn't think it was possible for you and for I. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, as we come before you, I pray that you help us to name the sin within our life. Name that thing that we need to change. Father, whatever that thing might be for us, help us to kill it. Help us to starve it. Help us to remove that fuel. Help us to see it for what it truly is and put up guardrails. Help us to confess it not only to you, Father, specifically, but also confess this to someone that's going to help us to keep us accountable. Father, it's why we're here. We're here because we need your Son. We're here because we need change, and he's the one who